It is 10 a.m. Good morning, everyone. Bright and early on a Saturday, I understand. But we are all here together and excited about beginning a new school year with our new students, our new and returning students, and parents. On behalf of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Chi Omega Omega Chapter, we welcome all of our students, parents, community members, Chi Omega Omega members, sorority members, and anyone else I may have forgotten in that whole group of people. We welcome all of you to our program this morning. This morning's program is sponsored by the #CAP committee. I am Risa Lanier. I am the chairman of #CAP. CAP stands for College Admissions Process. And the purpose of this program is really to demystify that college application process that makes so many students and parents anxious and pull out their hair as they begin thinking about all of the things that go into college admission process, getting admitted to school, getting that money, getting the scholarships. What does all that mean? Where do I even start? And that's what we're here for. We're here to help you through that process. And today's program is an orientation. Today is the kickoff of our 2021-2022 school year with all of you. So we'll walk through a little bit about this program, what you can expect. And then the meat and potatoes of today's workshop is financial aid. Today's workshop is a financial aid workshop, and it is right on time, because we know that the FAFSA application opens up on October 1st. And so those of you who have joined us who are juniors, as I begin walking through this program, you may be thinking, a lot of this may be geared towards the seniors, but that's simply not true. Because everything that we will discuss and walk you through these next 9 or 10 months, however long the school year lasts, actually is geared towards not just the seniors, but helping those juniors, because now is the time, juniors, for you to start preparing, for you to start thinking about these things as you begin to research the colleges that you plan to attend. What does my money look like? What do I do now to put myself in the best position possible to get into that school that I really, really want to attend that may seem right now unattainable? But the purpose of this program is to not only help our seniors through the process, but to get our juniors thinking about this so that you are in the best possible position come this time next year. So soak in all of this information, take in all of this information over the next 9 months that we're here with you. And you're going to use that to build and to begin to plan over the summer, juniors, for what you will go through on the next school year. For our seniors, we are here with you to walk you through step by step of this process that you are now fully engaged in, and to make sure that you are also setting yourself up for success. All right, fair enough? All right, so let's walk through today's program, everybody. Our agenda for today will begin with the introduction, which we just did. We'll move into an icebreaker because we want to know a little bit about who we're speaking to and who you are. The #CAP orientation portion, where I will talk about #CAP and what you can expect if you join this program. And then we'll get into our financial aid workshop. And I'm so excited for you to hear from the presenter that will be presenting today. We'll talk about the calendar for the rest of the year, and then we will have closing remarks. All right. So the first thing that I want to do before we jump into our icebreaker, for our students that are on the line today, that are here with us today, for our students, if you can do me a favor, I want you to insert your class year after your name. So for example, I'm looking at Miss Maylin Williams. So it would be Maylin Williams, and then she's either freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. So all of our students, please insert your class year after your name so we'll know what level you are and who you are. If you are a parent of a student here today, parent, please put the word parent after your name so we'll know how many parents we have joining in with us on today. So I'll give you all a moment just to do that before we move into our icebreaker. So just rename yourself and insert in your year, your year. So we have Maya Allen, she is a senior. Thank you, Maya. Thank you for joining. Ms. Godbolt is a parent here with us today. Thank you for joining. All right. Perfect. And for all of those that are joining in right now, again, if you are a student, please, after your name, put the year, put your school year. So if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, please insert that after your name. Just rename yourself in order to do that. And if you're a parent, please put parent after your name. Okay, well, let's move into our icebreaker for the day. Okay, today's icebreaker is geared towards our students. So our students will participate in this icebreaker, and our students only. So students, there are two things that I want you to do because we want to get to know you a little bit better. Two things that I want you to do. The first thing I want you to do is to drop in the chat what school you attend right now. And also, as you're dropping that in the chat, I want you to think about, if I were packing for college today, what is the one thing that I absolutely cannot leave home without? This is outside of your necessities. So don't tell me your clothes, your shoes, your cell phones, all of that. Those are your necessities. But what is the one item that you cannot leave home without? So I want you to drop that in the chat along with the school that you're currently attending. So for example, for me, Risa Lanier, I attended Percy Julian High School. And the one thing that I could not leave home without was my Cabbage Patch doll. So she went to school with me. Now she dropped out after her freshman year, but I finished. But she did go to school with me. I could not leave home without my Cabbage Patch doll. So as a freshman, yes, I had my doll with me at school. So I want you to drop in the chat. And we have people who are monitoring the chat because I can't see it. Okay, we've got AirPods, keys. So again, think about unique items, not the things that you would need, like your keys to get back home, We've got blankets, your Build-A-Bear, your stuffed bear, Riley. Riley's got to go to school too. Your journal. All right, so continue to drop that in the chat because we're going to come back later. Your mom, aw. So we're going to come back and we're going to revisit this icebreaker later on in the program. So again, continue to drop in the chat what school you attend currently and that one item that you just cannot leave home without outside of your necessities. All right. And I see a lot of things going on in there. And if I can have some help from my Chi Omega Omega members to maybe shout out a couple of these things that we see dropping in the chat. Knitting supplies, I see that from Melissa Warren. Candles, diffusers, iPad. You've got necklaces, planners, Google Home, AirPods. All right. All right, so that helps us to get to know you all a little bit better. And I also see we have representation from Lindblom, from De La Salle, from Kenwood, Brooks College Prep. We've got some university students here. We've got Eastern Illinois University, Francis W. Parker, Kankakee Trinity Academy. Thank you, Thornwood, Homewood Flossmoor. So we've got a lot of students and a lot of schools represented here. So again, welcome everyone. So I will let you continue to drop those items in the chat. We have someone very special who's monitoring this chat for a special purpose. And with that, we'll move on to the program. Let's talk a little bit about #CAP, moving into our orientation session. Why join #CAP? What are the benefits of you joining our program? Well, first we know, let's talk a little bit about statistics as it relates to our community. In a 2018 study, of African American students. While 88% of our students did receive their high school diploma, only 37% enrolled in college. And what we know is that college graduates make more than twice as much as non-college graduates. And so overall, as a population, our enrollment in college is low. And so the question becomes, as a community, what can we do to ensure that our community, that our students are enrolling in college, are getting the basic building blocks for their future by obtaining a college degree to make them successful in the future? Again, because we know college graduates make more than twice as much as our non-college graduates. So how can we best support one another? And that's where #CAP comes in. #CAP is a program that recognizes that sometimes our students just really lack the basic support that's needed in order to successfully navigate through the college admission process. And that's what we're here for. Even though you do receive those resources through your college counselors, we're here to support and to supplement the information that you're getting from your college counselors. We recognize that the college admissions process is very stressful. Think about all of that that's involved in college admission. You have the financial aid component, and that alone, as a parent, and I am a parent of a high school sophomore, as a parent, just thinking about the money component alone makes me want to scream and tear out my hair. And not to mention the scholarships. You've got all of the applications you have to keep up with, the testing, to test, to not to test. You have what college to choose from. And then there might be interviews involved. And then of course, writing that personal statement, which is probably arguably one of the most important components of your application. So here at #CAP, we provide that additional support and resources needed to increase our students' chances of success, ensure that our students and our parents are thoroughly prepared and put in the best possible position to enroll in the college of your choice. We help you manage all of that stress by increasing your knowledge about the college admissions process. So how do we do that? Here's what you can expect if you join #CAP. #CAP is a program where we consistently interact and engage with our students. We run a program once every month. That's the second Saturday of every month at 10 a.m. And in this program, you will find that we will provide for you people who are subject matter experts in different areas involved in that application process. For example, today you will be hearing from an expert in the area of financial aid. And we will also present later on in the year an expert in scholarship information. So we bring to you people who work in these fields who can give you the information and the tips and tricks to help you navigate through the college admission process. We support our students with standardized test prep materials. And then of course, the very important aspect of a college admissions or the college application is your personal statement. That personal statement is key to set yourself apart from other students who are applying. And tentatively scheduled for next month, we will be running our personal statement workshop. And I'm going to put in a plug now for our personal statement workshop. We've done this workshop for the past 2 years. Our presenter is phenomenal. Our students will receive key information about what should be contained in that personal statement, how it should be structured, how to grab the attention of those college administrators, and how to really differentiate our students from other applicants. You do not want to miss next month's workshop, that personal statement workshop. We also provide information for our students as far as college tours. Any information that we receive as an organization, we push out constantly and consistently to our students. And in the month of November, we will be sending our students, of course, we are all operating virtually at this point, to a virtual HBCU college tour that will be put on by another Chi Omega Omega program, HBCU for Life. You'll hear a lot about that program because we partner with them consistently throughout the year. And we don't just focus on HBCUs, we also focus on PWIs. You know, our goal here is to get our students into the college of your choice, regardless of what type of college that is. So whether you choose a predominantly white institution or whether you choose to attend an HBCU, everything that we present to you will help you and assist you in enrollment for any of those colleges. But we also do partner with our HBCU for Life program to bring you specific information that's pertinent and specific to HBCUs. So we'll talk a lot about them. We'll partner with them throughout the year. And in November, they will present to you a very comprehensive HBCU college tour with representatives from those colleges. So that's in November. You will have an opportunity during the year to hear from college panels. Our college panels consist of students who are currently enrolled in HBCUs as well as PWIs, who will bring very practical information to our students on what it's like when you first hit that college campus. How do you best prepare? And most importantly, as a student, how do you advocate for yourself? Because students at this point, the parents are going to have to take their hands off, and it's going to be up to you to walk into those financial aid offices, to reach out to those scholarship entities and really advocate for yourself. So you'll hear from students who have done so and who are currently doing so, and will help put you in the best possible position to do that. We will also bring you financial literacy workshops. I know that if you attend a CPS high school, that financial literacy is part of the curriculum, but we will bring in experts that will sit with you and will present to you topics on how to best build your college credit, to build your credit, starting now in high school and through college, and financial literacy information. How do you make your loans work for you? How do you make those bills that you pay work for you and set your credit up so that you will be successful as you navigate through your college career and onto your adult life where you begin your adulting? We'll come back in the spring and we'll talk about your financial aid award letters. We're going to bring you an expert. Last year, we brought in a financial aid administrator from a university here in Chicago who walked through the financial aid award letters. Once you get your letter, what does that mean for you? What does it mean for your finances? And what do you have to do in order to pay for the college of your choice? We'll walk you through that. We also want to make sure that our students are building those soft skills that they need. So we talked to you about interviewing and interviewing techniques. Last year, we ran a resume writing workshop and a mock interview workshop to put our students in the best possible position to put their best foot forward. When you're sitting face to face in those college interviews, in those internship interviews, in those scholarship interviews, how do you best represent yourself? We want to help you with that. And I can go on and on about the things that we do at #CAB, but I think we need to leave a little to the imagination. So up there in the last box, you'll see and more. We have a lot of surprises in store for you during this school year, and a lot of ways that we celebrate your milestones with you and that we do get you involved. I'm sure I've sold it. I'm sure you all are like, yes, how do I sign up? How do I sign up? I will drop in the chat a link to our scholarship, to our application. And there's one thing that I have to mention. One of the best benefits of being a part of this program, and you do have to be enrolled in our program, is that our scholars are eligible for exclusive #CAB scholarships and additional scholarships through our foundation, the Imani Pearls Community Development Foundation. Listen, we gave out thousands of dollars in scholarship monies just this past school year. Thousands with an S on the end. And our students, our #CAB students, did receive some of those scholarship monies. So that is a huge benefit to being a part of this program. So again, I will drop into the chat in just a few minutes a link to our scholarship, and we'll also give you instructions on where to send that completed scholarship. It's a fillable PDF, so you don't have to print it out. You can just type right in and then send it to us. At this time, I will pause for any questions. Let me stop my screen share so that I can see you all. And I'll pause for any questions that you may have about what to expect in joining this program. No questions? That's because you all are excited as I am. Okay, we do have one question from Miss Pettis. Good morning, Miss Pettis.
Good morning. My name is Nisaya Pettis, and I'm currently a senior at Francis Ward Parker. And my question is based on early admissions. So I do plan on doing early admissions. And do you predict that this whole cycle of workshops will be done before then?
Before early admission. So what we will do, so our program runs through the entire school year. And at the end of this, at the end of our presentation today, you'll see what we have left for 2021. So next month in October, we will be doing our personal statement workshop. That's something you definitely want to attend. Scholarships we will deal with in December. When we come back next year, we'll jump into those financial aid award letters. We'll jump into we'll talk a little bit more about the financial literacy, but for your purposes, because you are filling out your scholarship applications now, what's important for you is, your college applications now, what's important for you is to get that financial aid and scholarship information, right? And so we will walk through that in 2021. And also we are here to offer you any additional support that you may need. And so we'll be checking in with you. We'll be reaching out to you personally, students, to figure out where you are in your process and how we can offer you that one-on-one support. And you'll also see, let me just screen share one more time. You'll also see if you go to our website is chiomegaomega.org. There is a tab that says programs. If you click on that programs tab, it will take you to #CAP, and you'll see that we list additional resources for you on our website. We have parent resources, student resources, and it covers everything from financial aid to scholarships to frequently asked questions about those resources. We have student resources to help you keep yourselves on task in terms of meeting your deadline. So we do have forms that you can use to make sure that you are being as organized as possible. We do put our workshops on our website after our live workshops. They are posted to our website. We spotlight our students. So we do offer and we do put additional resources on our website. And again, as we receive information from the colleges, from the high school counselors that we are connected with and other community organizations, we push out all of that information consistently. So yes, to answer your question, Ms. Pettis, we will be able to offer you the assistance that you need, even for those who are looking for early admission.
Thank you so much. That's amazing.
Perfect. Okay, so we do have a chat from Ms. Jacob. Thank you, Ms. Jacob. We do have a question, and yes, so I will be again putting into the chat a link to our application. I will drop that in just a few minutes. I'll make sure that you know that it's there. And today's and every session will be recorded, and yes, we will have those recordings available for those of you who came in late and want to catch up on some of that information. Okay. Do we have any other questions before we move on? All right, and so again, there is a demonstrated benefit to joining #CAP. Our graduates, last year, our graduates were accepted to the colleges of their choice and even additional colleges, but they were able to go to and attend the colleges of their choice. And we look forward to working with your students and parents to help you get set up for success and get enrolled in your colleges of your choice, and most importantly, to help you get that money. And speaking of getting money, we're going to move right on in to our financial aid workshop. And I do want to introduce our speaker for the day. I'm so excited that she is here with us on today. Our speaker for today is Miss Laurie Cotton. Ms. Cotton is a college advisor for Purdue University Global. She has 15 years of experience in advising college-bound and current college students. Ms. Cotton is passionate about supporting students and helping families navigate through that college admissions process, as well as overcoming any challenges for student success to graduation. Again, it is my honor to present to you Miss Laurie Cotton.
Thank you so much, Risa, and good morning to parents and students. I'm so excited to present today with you all. I have a lot that I'm going to go over, and I'm going to just start with just a little housekeeping, just to let you all know if you have questions, I will take them at the end. However, because there is a lot of information that I'll cover, I'm going to try my best, since I'll be sharing my screen, to look at the chat. But what I just want to make sure, if I look at the chat, I think that they'll see the chat correct on my end. Okay, so I'll still look at the chat just because I assume there's going to be a lot of questions. So I'm really excited today. I want to thank the ladies of Chi Omega Omega as well. And I also am so excited about the CAP, hashtag CAP. Just hearing about the different opportunities that you all will have to learn about resources available, not just preparing for college, but post-college is one of the reasons why I got into working for colleges. My experience with going into college was very stressful because, not to date myself, but there weren't a lot of the resources available that you all have today. I was at the very start of the internet, the age of the internet, and there weren't a lot of the resources that you can look up online. But even with that, you do have to be careful with the type of resources that you're finding. Sometimes information is not accurate. And I'll go over websites that are government websites to make sure that you all know where to find the best and most accurate information. But just hearing about the different resources that are available through hashtag CAP, I really encourage you all to take advantage, because that's the exact reason, again, I went into working for colleges. I've been a college advisor for about 15 years. And in my role, I support students while they're not only just enrolling into college, but as students and all the way through graduation. I help students make the best decisions as far as the programs that they like to go into, how they'll fund their college, supporting them through their time as a student, and also getting them to graduation. Financial aid for me was probably my biggest challenge when I was in college. And as an advisor for students, I've learned it isn't something that's just a concern for students when they enroll. It is a continued concern for a lot of students all the way through graduation. And for some students, even once they graduate. And the reason I'll cover is because of things like student loans. So we have a lot that we're going to go over. I hope to answer a lot of your questions. I do want to start by just getting a feel for your awareness of financial aid. So then that way I don't lose you. I'm going to assume that most of you are new to the topic of financial aid. So then that way I don't use terms that may be new to you. But I do want to just get a little feel for your idea of financial aid at this time. So in the chat, if you can just provide on a scale of 1 to 10, how familiar you are with financial aid. All right, so I see there's a 1 there, which is probably me at your time. There's a 4 and 5, we have a 10, another 4, an 8. We have some 5s, a few more 8s, a 6, a 2. We have an 8, 3, another 5, a 1. There's a lot of 8s, which is good. There's some confidence there. And as I said before, I'd probably be in that 1 category. I see another 2. Excellent. So whether you feel that it's new to you, maybe you're at a 1, or you feel pretty confident where you're at an 8 and a 10, I do hope to provide information that still gives you resources and an understanding of financial aid that helps you in this journey. I did see that we have parents. We also have juniors and seniors. And as Risa said, if you are a junior, you are not too early in the process of financial aid. You can actually take advantage of researching and learning now to make the best decisions to carry you into your senior year. So then that way, the type of classes that you take, how you're preparing yourself is going to help you, hopefully, with the type of financial aid you may be eligible for. And if you're a senior, it's not too late for you either. I'm going to cover how you can continue, as I mentioned before, to learn about financial aid, even as a student, because it will be a continued journey. It's not just your first year or enrolling into college. It is something you will continue to learn in. So I'm hoping that I, again, can provide you with a lot of resources that will help you in that journey. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. All right, I'm sorry about that. It'll just be one moment. The PowerPoint that I'd like to bring up, I'm just making sure that that's loading on your end. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. All right. So we are going to cover financial aid basics and what students and families need to know. So again, I know that we have parents and students, and some of you are familiar with financial aid. We're going to cover not only financial aid, but I'm going to touch on a little bit on scholarships as well. And I will be providing you with resources and websites, and I'll put the links in the chat. I'm going to walk through the websites because the main website I'm going to use is actually the federal government's website. It's pretty lengthy. There's a lot of information. I'm going to pull some of the important resources that you can start reviewing now that will educate you on financial aid. So then that way you know what to look for. So I'm going to spend a lot of time with covering information on the government's federal website. All right.
And Laurie, I'm sorry, just to interject for
Yeah.
1 second here. On my screen, I see the Zoom. I see the Zoom screen.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure, and it may just be on my end, but I just want to make sure that everyone is actually seeing your presentation.
Okay, let me try again.
I'm seeing the Zoom screen as well.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know. I'm not sure why that for some reason it's not showing me the option of the PowerPoint. Let me see. It'll just be one moment. I'm sorry about that. Let's see.
I do have your PowerPoint ready to go if you would like for me to display it for you and I can help you walk through it.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for that. So we can scroll to page 2. All right, great. So during our presentation today, I'm going to cover a lot of information on financial aid and also information on the college process as well in terms of financial aid. So we're going to cover how you're going to be able to find the average cost of schools, as well as what's included in the cost of tuition. We're going to cover the difference between grants, scholarships, loans, and work study, as well as how exactly a student receives financial aid. All right, now with the financial aid process, that is a process that can be daunting for a lot of students. It can be incredibly overwhelming. However, again, as I mentioned, there are resources available to help you through the process. My hugest recommendation for all of you is to take the time to do the research as you're walking through the financial aid process. And I will cover why, but the reason is, in my opinion, I felt when I was a student that I was very concerned with financial aid for, at that time, of being able to start college. I was concerned more so about getting into school and having the funds to pay for school, but I didn't think so much about what the outcome would be once I graduated. That might not be the case for all students, but that was my experience. I was more focused on how am I going to pay for school to go to school, but I didn't really take time to understand how that would affect me once I graduated. So in the financial aid process, what I like to cover today and what I would really stress for all of you all is to take into consideration not only how you're going to pay for school, but what that will look like once you are a graduate from college. Now, the great news is that if you are using financial aid, most students that attend college are also using some form of financial aid. And to let you know what financial aid is, financial aid is money that helps you to pay for college, and it includes grants, work studies, loans, and scholarships, which we'll cover. And financial aid can come from different resources, which include the federal government. It can also come from the state, from schools, and also from private sources. And we're going to cover a few of those. So as a college advisor, we always make the joke that a lot of people don't have a wealthy uncle that is paying for their college, and that they usually have to have some means of assistance paying for school. That might include for some students scholarships, whether it's merit or it might be through sports. And for some students, they may have to utilize federal funds for college. But if that is something you're not even sure how you're going to pay for college, that's very common as well. So we're going to go over some of the resources that are available, and I'm going to provide you with links, and that way you'd be able to continue to do that research. All right. All right, now the FAFSA is the free online application for the federal student aid. And that application is an application that you would complete every single year. So as I mentioned, when you are starting college, it's going to be your first time of completing a financial aid application. However, you will continue to complete that financial aid application every single year. The federal government, they provide over $150 billion in funds for students for college. So that means that there is a lot of money available. Different schools have different tuition rates. So you may be attending a school, maybe starting off at a community college that has a lower tuition rate, or you may be going to a state school that has a higher tuition rate. The great news is that while students may find a variance in the cost of tuition, that there is a lot of funding available to help ease the tuition rates through the federal financial aid available that you'll cover with me with the FAFSA application. And just to get a little feel, how many of you, if you can provide in the chat, have already started a financial aid application? If you can just provide in the chat, if you have started a financial aid application already. Okay, I see that there's a no, no, yes, no. Starting October 1st, no. No, excellent. All right, great. So this may be the first time that you all are even having an opportunity to see what is involved in the financial aid application. And we're going to cover that. All right, now the October 1st, as Risa mentioned, is the first day that students can apply for the financial aid application. That means that it is the first day that it'll be available for you to start applying. That does not mean it's the deadline date. So as I want to continue to stress, taking time, completing the application is important, doing your research, but October 1st is the first opportunity that you can apply for financial aid. I'm going to cover in a moment schools and how you're able to send your application to various schools, but there is only one financial aid application that you would complete. So let's say, for instance, you're applying to multiple schools. You don't have to complete multiple financial aid applications. Instead, there's what's called a school code. It's almost like a social security number that every school has. And that's how they would receive your individual financial aid application. So the good news is that as stressful as a financial aid application is, you don't have to complete multiple applications to send to different schools. Instead, you would have one application that you would complete, and you would enter multiple school codes for each school that you're interested in attending, and they would receive your financial aid application. that is something that's important. There isn't a maximum amount of school codes that you can include in your application. It will help you make a decision in terms of not just if a school is the best fit in terms of the curriculum and the programs, but also being able to compare between schools what you may receive in funding. So it is important if you have schools that you're considering to add their school code. So then that way you're able to understand if you were to attend that school, what it would look like for you based on their tuition and what you would receive in funding. For students that are considering attending out of state, that's also incredibly important because every state is going to be different in terms of what you may be eligible for as well. So again, putting multiple school codes on your financial aid application is a great way to compare schools to see what you may receive in funding. All right, so now we're going to spend some time actually looking at the financial aid website. As I mentioned, and again, not to date myself, but when I was in school, this was all done by paper. So we had to rely on our financial aid advisors. And as an advisor myself, I take pride in educating my students. However, sometimes you may find that you do have to do a little bit of your own research when it comes to asking questions and specifically catering questions to you. So you all are very fortunate to have a lot of resources available to you online. And I'd like to walk through the financial aid, student aid government website, which you may or may not have visited. Again, there's a lot of information. As an advisor, I work with students and I'm an online college that I'm an advisor for. And a lot of resources that we have online for students can be hard to find. So I hope that walking through helps you with getting to the information that is the most relevant and important. So then that way you, again, as you're going through your application, know what is available for you to understand how to best fill out your application. And again, know how to, once you're filling out your application, make decisions that are best for you, not just as a student, but once you graduate. And I'm going to spend a lot of time explaining why. All right, now the financial aid website is going to provide you with a free application. As I mentioned, you want to make sure as you are using websites and resources that the websites have the .gov at the end, just to make sure that they are websites that are relevant, that they're affiliated with the government. You generally are not going to have to pay for whether it's applying for scholarships or the FAFSA. These are all free applications. So if you do come across a site that asks for any type of resources to pay to apply, you might want to just make sure that you're doing a search again and make sure that it is a government site. That .gov at the end is very important. So I'm going to spend time going on the student aid site, and I'm hoping if I'm sharing my screen that this is going to work for you to see. Okay, is the federal aid site showing for you? I'm going to go back to the chat just to make sure.
No, we don't see anything.
Okay, let me pull it back up. Okay, is it showing now?
Still nothing.
Okay, let's see. Ah, here we go. Okay, is it sharing for you now?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, great. All right, so this is studentaid.gov, and I'm going to drop this in the chat. This is the website that is the official federal government website for financial aid. This is a website that as you are a student, I would bookmark, I would get very familiar with, because this site is going to house everything related to your financial aid. Even for me as a graduate student, I still use this site because this is how I make payments. This is how I stay on top of my financial aid. Let's see, I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to get to the chat here. There we go. Oops. Okay, I just wanted to leave that link for you. All right, so on the site, where I'm gonna start with is covering some of the most important areas. On the very top of the site, there's a understanding aid area. Now, this is going to provide you with how exactly financial aid works step by step. I'll be honest, sometimes you can kind of graze through areas and just get right to the meat and potatoes with the which is the application. But I would strongly encourage you to really take time to review and read this information, because again, this is going to be crucial for you when you graduate from college to really understand what you're taking out in terms of any resources that's going to help you as a college student fund your tuition. So for the how financial aid works portion, it's gonna provide you with step by step an understanding financial aid and some key tips. So first and foremost is to start planning early. So for juniors, that's something that again I would encourage you to continue to review this site as if you're a senior. Although you may not be in the stage of actually submitting an application, this allows you to research and understand how financial aid works and what resources are available to you. You're also going to, of course, fill out the FAFSA form. Now, in filling out a FAFSA form, you're going to receive, when you fill out your first FAFSA form, a unique code. And that is going to be just like how colleges have almost like a social security number that identifies their college. You're going to also receive a code that will carry you as a student. And that's going to be your individual code that will always be linked to you, that will allow you to continue to apply for financial aid. There's areas that I'm going to cover later that help you understand work study jobs and understanding loans. And I'm going to cover the difference between different resources and how they may benefit you in different ways. Now, this for me, in all honesty, was probably the most challenging part of using the financial aid application. It was actually understanding my aid offer. This is an area that I would really strongly suggest that once you have completed the application, that you are reviewing to understand what it means. Just because you are qualified for financial aid, it does not mean you have to take all of the financial aid that you are approved for. So if you are approved for a certain amount, you may decide that based on what you're approved for, you only want to take exactly what you need to pay for your tuition and not a dollar over. And I'm going to cover a little bit more on that and why that might be something to consider. And then once you have made a decision as far as the college that you want to attend, this area would help you with understanding how exactly you're going to even utilize the financial aid that you've been approved for, as I mentioned, to apply for the tuition that you're going to use for the school that you decide to attend. And this is the area that I will be very transparent. I probably spent the least time focusing on when I was a student, and it turned out to be the most important area. And that was, once you graduate, what does it look like once it's time for you to start repaying? I would recommend you spend just as much time on this area as you are enrolling into school as you do the application process. Because once you are done with school, those financial aid loans and resources that you utilize, they don't go anywhere. Those are going to be resources that you will be responsible for paying back. And having a very clear understanding of what that means and looks like is great to understand before you even start college, so that once again, you'll have a good understanding of how much you even want to take from the government to make sure that you're comfortable with that amount. So when you graduate, you're already pretty clear on what that will look like when you are finished with school. And I'm going to provide you with a few resources that I wish that I knew about. There's one that actually lets you get a little bit of an understanding of how much you may have in terms of payments once you graduate. There's also one that lets you calculate the potential income you might have once you graduate based on your major. So I want to provide you, like I said, with some resources that I'm hoping will help you with making the best educated decision, not just for now as a student, but once you graduate. All right. All right, now what we're going to cover next is going to be the types of financial aid that is available to you as a student. Now, there's a variety of resources that are available for you as a student, and every student will be different in how they choose what resources that they're going to use. You may find that you're a student that has full scholarship for college, and you are using scholarships throughout your college, maybe a variety of different scholarships where you're not utilizing any other sources of financial aid. Or you may be a student that you are not using any scholarships, but you're using a combination of different loans or maybe even state grants. So again, every student is going to be different in what they use for financial aid. But what I hope is helpful to know is that no matter what you're eligible for in terms of whether it's scholarships, grants, or loans, there are resources that are available to you. Sometimes you may, as a student, be solely responsible for what you're going to utilize for financial aid. And then other students may also have their parents utilizing loans as well, which will cover as well the different types of loans that might be available to student and parents. But this area of the financial aid website provides you with resources. I'm going to have you all watch a very short video. It's about 2 minutes in length, and it helps with just understanding the difference between federal loans, grants, and work studies and how you can fund your education. So again, this video is only 2 minutes in length, but I think that it's helpful just in summarizing how financial aid works.
If you need help paying for college or career school, the Office of Federal Student Aid might be your best option. We offer more than $150 billion to students each year in the form of grants, loans, and work-study funds. And federal student aid can be used to pay for school expenses, such as tuition, room and board, and books and supplies. After you've filled out the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA, you'll receive an award letter from each school you list on your FAFSA. This letter explains both the federal and non-federal financial aid options that a school is offering you. So let's talk about federal aid. If you qualify for and receive a federal grant, you won't have to repay the money. That will definitely help offset the cost of school, but you may still need additional help. If so, a federal student loan might be your answer. Remember, a student loan is just like any other loan. It's borrowed money that will have to be repaid with interest. If you plan to take out a loan, consider federal student loans first. Compared to private student loans, federal student loans often have lower fixed interest rates and offer many benefits that you won't find otherwise. For example, when it's time for you to repay your federal student loan, your loan servicer can work with you to find the best repayment plan for your individual needs. Plus, you may be able to adjust your loan payments based on your income. You also may be able to defer your federal loan payments, deduct student loan interest on your taxes, and even consolidate your eligible federal student loans into one loan with one monthly payment. Federal loans can even be forgiven based on certain types of employment. Getting a work-study job is another great option to help pay for school. Eligible undergraduate and graduate students will be able to earn at least minimum wage. If you have questions or need assistance, you can contact the financial aid office at your college or career school, or visit studentaid.gov for more information.
All right, so I liked the last part that said that you can contact your school's financial aid office. Before I enrolled in school, again, when I was in school, we didn't have a lot of the resources online. I used to contact financial aid all the time and ask questions. So I would strongly encourage you to not only use resources, but contact the school's financial aid office for schools that you're interested in. If you have questions, just to clarify and make sure that you're clearly understanding the options that are available, especially after you have filled out your financial aid application and see the resources that they have offered to you. So then that way you're making the best decision, because different types of financial aid will have different ways that you'll be responsible for paying them back once you graduate or not paying them back. So there's two types of financial aid resources that you do not have to pay back, and they're typically the first two types that you like to exhaust before you get to the next portions, which I'll cover in a moment. And that includes grants and scholarships. Now, grants vary by state and eligibility as far as who would be eligible for grants and what type of grant. So if you are attending a school, let's say in Illinois, and you're an Illinois resident, you may be eligible for grants that a student that is attending an Illinois state school but is not a resident of Illinois may not be eligible for. Grants are financial aid that do not have to be paid back. So when you take out a grant, those are resources that you do not have to pay back. So that's why if you are eligible for grants, it's very important to accept, because you don't have to pay those back. So that would take from the cost of your tuition. However, typically grants are not enough to cover the full cost of tuition. So if you are eligible for grants, they will definitely help in minimizing the cost of your tuition. However, they typically are not enough to cover the full cost of tuition. So that's why you'll find that students may have a combination of resources that they're utilizing to pay for their school. I would start with, once you're looking into financial aid options available, looking into grants, because again, you don't have to pay those back. And then once you've exhausted any grants you're eligible for, then you would move on to scholarships. Now, the great thing is that with grants, once you complete the free application for financial aid, they will actually determine grants that you're eligible for. That would be determined by things such as your residence, your household income. So it's not something necessarily that you have to search for. It's when you complete that free application for federal aid that you will be able to determine the grants that you're eligible for. With scholarships, that is something that you have different ways of receiving scholarships that are out there, and it takes a little bit of legwork. I always recommend to my students that scholarships is a full job, almost like a full-time job that you're going to do while you're a student, of searching for scholarships that are available. The reason is because, just like Hbcus mentioned, they actually have scholarships available to students. So there are so many ways that you can receive scholarships that it can be something that you might set aside on your calendar every single week, that you just do a little bit of research to see what scholarships may be available to you. I'm going to give you some examples of how you can look for scholarships and a few websites available. But the thing about scholarships is that you may find there's organizations like #cap that offer scholarships. Those scholarships may be available to you to maybe cover the cost of your textbooks, or they may cover maybe the cost of one of your courses. Then you might be able, and with scholarships, the great thing is also you can combine scholarships. So you might be a student that has multiple scholarships that you're applying towards your tuition. Maybe you attend a church that has a scholarship that's maybe $400. When you're a college student, depending on how they allow you to use that money, that can be money that maybe you're using just to live off of as a student. Or again, it might go towards the cost of your textbooks. With scholarships, they all vary in terms of the types of scholarships available. Some are merit based, so you may have some students that are eligible for scholarships based on their grade point average. Now, the great thing about scholarships is that, let's say you don't qualify for scholarships now as a junior or senior, but when you start college, you have a 3.5 GPA your freshman year. Well, you might be eligible for scholarships you weren't eligible for as a senior in high school. So that's why scholarships are important to continue to research, because your eligibility may change as you're a student. And because of that, that's another thing with scholarships that you want to be mindful of. Just as you may be eligible for scholarships at different times of your school based on a GPA, you might actually not be eligible for that same scholarship if that were to change. So it's very important that you are aware of what allows you to be eligible for a scholarship, to make sure that you keep the scholarships that you're available for, and that you continue to do research, because you might find that you're eligible for scholarships you weren't previously eligible for. Now, with scholarships, they also are scholarships that you do not pay back. And the rule of thumb is typically that you never want to pay to apply for a scholarship. Unfortunately, that could come with sometimes scams, or scholarships that are just set up for you to pay to apply, and they're not real organizations. So scholarship applications are typically always free. The way that you would apply for scholarships may vary. Sometimes you might have to do a scholarship. If you maybe have an art background, you might have to submit artwork, or there's many different types of scholarships are available. But I would encourage you, have a calendar reminder every week, every 2 weeks, the whole time you're in school, to just continue to do research for scholarships, because there's so many available. And I'm going to, like I said, walk you through a few examples of how you can search, and just some tips to save time and narrow down scholarships that you might be eligible for. Now, work study jobs is something that, if you are a student, depending on the school that you're attending, you may find you're eligible for. When I was in college, I had a few work study jobs. They vary based on the school. I had a work study job where I worked at our school's currency exchange. And the way that you can use work study is different for every school as well. Some students may take the money that they make, which you work hours, so it's like a job. You may take the resources from your work study job and not actually get paid yourself, but put it towards your cost of tuition. Or in my instance, I needed the resources, so I received money from my work study job. But for students that work study jobs, through your financial aid application, it would find that you're qualified for a work study job. So sometimes you'll work in a job where some students have actually applied for the job, and then other students, they were eligible for that position through a work study position that came from seeing that they were eligible for resources through the FAFSA application. And again, you'll be able to determine how you want to have your work study resourced, whether you want to have it put towards your tuition or if you want to have that come to you in your pocket. There's really no right or wrong. When I was a student and I had a work study, when I lived in the dorms, I had a meal plan. And so at that time, I didn't necessarily need the money in my pocket. So I had it put towards my tuition. But when I moved out of my dorm and I lived in an apartment, I needed the money in my pocket. And so I changed my work study to where I received it. So again, that's another opportunity to have resources that you'd receive. And then there's student loans. So we try to be non-biased when it comes to providing different resources to consider. It is encouraged to consider grants and scholarships first and foremost because you do not have to pay them back. However, the reality is a lot of students do have to use student loans, myself included. It is just incredibly important that when you are using student loans, you understand what you are taking out in terms of student loans because you pay those back. And again, sometimes with school, you really are in the moment and you know, I have to go to college. And so if I have to take out loans, I have to take out loans. But you're not really thinking so much about what this is going to look like when I graduate. And it follows you. And it is something that when you graduate, you're excited, you're making money, you finally see the fruits of your labor of being a student. And now you have these student loan payments. And they may be a lot more than you ever anticipated. And sometimes it's out of your control based on the school that you apply to and their tuition and other resources might be available to you. But the more you know, the more it just helps you feel prepared for whatever is expected to you once you graduate. So if there's anything I hope that you take from this, and what I want to share with you also are a few resources to help you understand how to best estimate what that might look like. It's again, not just thinking about how am I going to pay for school, but what is this going to look like when I graduate? That is something that I think if you ask anyone that has graduated college, they would also confirm with you is something that they would stress you really are thinking about. Some of us even wish we were in your shoes where we can go back in time and take a step back and think about what is this going to look like when I graduate? If I could do anything differently, I probably would have spent a lot more time with finding ways that I could have maybe brought down my student loans while I was in school, maybe paying my interest while I was in school. I might have maybe, again, I wasn't unfortunately in the age of scholarships. So I remember going to the library and every year they would have these books that would give you scholarships. But I wish I had maybe taken more time to look into scholarships. That could have been a huge way for me to cut down on my student loans. So that is why I will stress and stress and stress throughout our time today to really consider what this is going to look like for you when you graduate. All right. Now, if you come from a military family, there are also options available. And a lot of times colleges have a separate department specifically for students that have military families, because depending on the type of military backgrounds that they may that you may come from, you might actually have resources available to you. Also, when you fill out the free application for federal aid, you are actually having to sign up for selective service as well. So for some students, they might decide they want to enlist themselves, and that might provide resources to them as a student. Or excuse me, if you have parents that may have served in the military, then there might be some funds available for you. So that is something that you might want to ask, especially if you're maybe doing the application by yourself, just to know any resources that might be available to you. All right. As I mentioned before, there are resources available through the state government. Oftentimes that would be something that when you complete your financial aid application, you would find out if you're eligible for it. So the great thing is with the application, while it is pretty lengthy, a lot of the application questions you might have about what you're eligible for are going to come in answers once you complete that application. So scholarships is really the separate legwork that you're going to do outside of that initial free application. Scholarships will be what you'll do because, again, there's so many scholarships out there with different organizations that will just take time and research as you're out and about. You might be working as a student, maybe at Starbucks or anywhere that you might want to ask them, do you have any scholarships available for students? So scholarships, I want to have you keep in the back of your mind as you're a student, because there's so many different places that offer scholarships. #CAP does. Like I said, I was a part of an organization with my church where we offered scholarships to students. So that is something that I will continue to say, spending time researching scholarships is going to be very important for you. All right, now with financial aid eligibility, there are different ways that students are eligible for financial aid. So you might find that if you have a roommate, your roommate is eligible for a different amount of financial aid than you might be. However, although everyone has different eligibility, the way that the government provides financial aid is that it will be available to cover school. It's just how it's going to be available to you is going to vary based on your individual needs. So when you complete the free application for financial aid, it's going to ask you with questions that are going to help determine what your needs are. It'll ask you questions such as how many people are in your household? How many people in your household are attending college? It's going to ask about your parents' income. It's going to ask your age. All of those things determine what you're eligible for, how much financial aid you're eligible for. It can vary every school year. So as you have credits that you're receiving in school, the amount of financial aid that you're eligible for is going to vary. For some students, they're going to find we have parents that are attending, and that's wonderful. Some parents may be attending to help their students or their children with making decisions. Some parents may be attending because they're actually going to be taking on the responsibility of that financial aid. And then we may have some students that are attending simply because their parents weren't able to, or because it's going to be up to them to find the resources for their financial aid. Whatever the case may be, there are options available for financial aid for not only students, but parents. Now, that's something that I would strongly suggest is researched as well, because just as students are going to be responsible for any financial aid that they are utilizing, so are parents if they're taking out any financial aid as well. So that is something that you definitely want to spend time with researching and understanding what that would look like. You might find, I remember when I was in school, some of my friends, if they had parents that were taking out loans, they had a lot more pressure with school because their parents were letting them know, you need to keep that GPA up. You need to be doing well in school, because they knew I'm going to be paying this back on my part. And then some students, it was solely on them. And so whether you're going to have any assistance or not, the great thing is that there are resources available to you. For some students, it can be a little scary if they know that this is all on them. They don't really know much about financial aid, and they know that they're going to have to learn how to cover their tuition. But again, there's resources that are available in terms of loans, even for students. So if you do not have assistance of a parent, you still would be eligible for loan as well. So there are information available for different things that may cause a student to not be eligible for financial aid, or for students that may have special circumstances as well. So as you are filling out your financial aid application, I would encourage you to come to this area to see if any of these relate to any circumstances, just so that way you are familiar with what you may or may not be eligible for. And staying eligible for financial aid is important also, because as I mentioned with scholarships, that can vary. So can financial aid. You do want to make sure you are familiar with what would keep you eligible for financial aid. Your school might have different requirements based on your GPA, your enrollment, the amount of classes you're taking every term. So a great example is that when I was in school, my freshman year, I had a roommate, but I decided to get a room by myself. Well, I was 18 years old, and I had no idea that I was still going to be responsible for the full cost of that room. I didn't know that. I thought my room was going to stay the same amount. And so I ended up having a large expense that I was responsible for having a room by myself. So there's a lot of things that you might want to just keep in mind, because your financial aid eligibility can change as you change your circumstances. So staying in touch with your financial aid officers at your college and just knowing what you're qualified for and staying within those means is important, so that you're not surprised if maybe your financial aid resources are available for you changes as well. Now, actually applying for financial aid is done online, and there's a free application for financial aid that you're going to complete. The free application for financial aid is a application that, again, will ask you to have resources that you'll have to input every year. And you're going to input that information, and it will determine what you're eligible for every year. So for instance, you'll input your tax information as well as parents if you are working. And that means that if that changes, so may your financial aid. So every year, your financial aid you might be eligible for may change. So it is important that you're aware of that. That can, for some students, cause some stress. If there's a change in income, if there's a change in circumstances, if you have siblings where you're the first to go to college, but then maybe a year or two later, you have a sibling that goes away to college, all of those things can change your financial aid you're eligible for every year. So it is important to just keep that in mind, that when you're a freshman, what you're eligible for will continue to change. Sometimes students think that what they're eligible for that first year is going to carry throughout their time as a student, but it can change based on financial circumstances, the amount of students in school. All of those things can affect and change your financial aid, which is again why it's really important to continue to look into scholarships. So then that way, if there's a change, you'll have a coverage that might take over for anything that maybe you might lack in financial aid or that you decide you no longer want to utilize. All right, now I'm going to go back to our slide if we can, and I'm going to see if it lets me screen share it yet. Okay, if we can go back to the slide, please. I'm going to go to the slide that provides us with information on College Board. Thank you. Perfect. Great. Thank you. Now, College Board is a resource and website available to students that assists in the collection of your financial aid documents. So then that way it allows you to, as I mentioned before, every school has an individual school code that's like a social security number that allows you to input the school code on your application. And that's how schools receive your financial aid application. However, College Board is a part of, CSS Profile is a part of College Board. You may be familiar with College Board. It's a website that provides you with resources such as SAT testing. They provide a lot of helpful resources and even scholarships for students. Part of that is CSS Profile, which allows you to input your financial aid application. Now, there's about 400 schools that are under the CSS Profile. So you might not find that a school that you're applying to is under the CSS Profile. However, if so, what the College Board site will do is it will allow you to compare the cost of schools that you're considering. So then that way you're able to see a college savings calculator, a student loan calculator that helps you with comparing to make decisions on what school might be best for you. However, there's about 400 schools in their network, so you might find that all the schools that you're looking to attend are not listed, but I would strongly advise creating a profile. Some schools actually require a profile to be completed. So then that way you'll have all of your school input information and FAFSA information input on the College Board. But if you are applying for schools that are listed on our College Board, it's a great way to compare as you're making a decision on what school is best for you. All right, and then I'll go to the next slide. All right, so a few tips as far as financial aid, as we mentioned before. The first day to apply and that you're eligible to apply for financial aid is October 1st. You will want to know deadline dates for financial aid in your state that you're attending college or that you're applying to attend college. Also for scholarships, scholarships vary. So you will find that there might be a scholarship that has a deadline today, and you might find that there's a scholarship that has a deadline for a year out from now. But you do want to get familiar with deadline dates. So in that way you are familiar with when you're going to have to get any paperwork in for financial aid. The CSS website that will provide you with deadline dates for scholarships and also for financial aid applications. But again, it's relevant for the schools within the profile. There's about 400. So that's a great way for you to stay organized through the CSS profile. However, if you don't have schools that you're attending, I did happen to notice when I went through, there unfortunately weren't a lot of HBCUs listed. So if you're applying, let's say to HBCUs, I even tried a few of our state schools. Northern Illinois University, I did not see listed. There was, I think almost all Ivy League schools were listed. But if there are not schools listed that you're interested in, then you would just want to keep record of that information on your end of deadline dates and any relevant information. But I would definitely advise creating a profile. All right, so I'm gonna go to the next slide. All right, and as I mentioned before with scholarships, there are lots of scholarships out there. And unfortunately, there are people that take advantage of the fact that students are looking for scholarship opportunities. So it is very important that if you are applying for scholarships, that you're mindful of not paying for scholarships. Typically, you do not have to ever pay to apply for a scholarship. Also, they shouldn't be asking for certain information such as a social security number. Just be very cautious of what they're asking for. from you. A lot of times scholarships will ask you to create an essay or maybe fill out a profile, or maybe if you, again, if you're in a certain area, maybe in art, they might ask you to create a special piece. But if they're asking for very personal information, your taxes or social security or household income, things like that, it really shouldn't ask of you. Based on certain scholarships, they might ask for household income or things of that nature, because you might have to qualify based on if you meet expectations for household income. But you want to caution if they're asking for things like your taxes, because that has personal information. It might instead just ask you for just a number. So just be very careful. If you have questions, just Google, look up the scholarship, make sure that you are finding that there's reviews that you do find is credible. You might even want to contact your school and ask if they've heard of that particular scholarship if you have any questions. All right, so I'm going to go to the next slide. All right, so this is an area that I am really excited about sharing with you all, because this is how you can minimize student loan debts. Now, that is sometimes an elephant in the room that's very focused on how am I going to pay for school, but not so much that debt conversation. Student loan debt is something that you want to keep the minimal amount possible. Now, depending on the school you're going to and the major you're going into, that might not be possible for you. You might find that the school you're attending has a higher tuition rate than other schools. So it may be something that is going to be just a reality for you. However, if there is a way to minimize your student loan debt, being creative while you're in school is going to really benefit you in the long run. My niece is a graduate from college. She graduated about 2-3 years ago, and I think she exhausted herself of every single semester, me drilling in her head, please make sure you're not taking out loans for unnecessary reasons. Have you looked into scholarships? What's your GPA this semester? Let's look into see what you qualify for. But as a graduate now, she has an amount that is pretty manageable for her to realistically pay off when she buckles down and really starts paying her student loans. Now, for some students, that might be something that they can do based on their circumstances once they graduate. Everyone's different. Some students might move back home for a few years to pay off their loans. They may get roommates for a few years. They may find that if they're working for a certain company for a few years, that there's tuition reimbursement. For some students, there's different fields, such as maybe education, where if you're working for a specific type of school for a specific amount of time, they may forgive your student loans. Really doing that type of research is going to be really great for you. You might find that there's an employer that you work for post-college that will forgive your student loans, or maybe if you decide to go on for your master's, you can continue to minimize your student loan debt by working for companies that might pay for tuition reimbursement for you. So these are things that, again, sometimes when you're starting school, it's kind of in the back of your mind, but you're not really realizing that school sometimes for some students is 4 years. However, those student loan debts can carry you for decades. And that's why it's so important to understand student loan debt, because unfortunately, they tend to last a lot longer than the time you spent in school. And interest, which I'm going to cover next, is something that I was very unfamiliar with. The reason is because at 17, 18 years old, I had no credit card experience. So I didn't know what interest was. However, I was taking out student loan debt and I was unfamiliar with this concept of interest. I had no idea what it was, what it meant, how it would factor into the student loans I was taking out. So that's why really taking the time to understand all of these things as you're applying will benefit you in the long run. So then that way you have a strong grasp of what is this going to look like when I graduate. So I'm going to share a screen, and it's going to be through the Sallie Mae website. And that is going to provide you with information that will help you estimate what your student loans might look like when you graduate. Now, this is just an estimate. So this is not a guarantee of how much you are going to be responsible for when you graduate, but it allows you to kind of have a number in mind. For some students, it may be a relief. For some students, it may go, whoa. But again, it'll help you with really taking the time to make decisions as far as, should I look into scholarships more? Is there any assistance that I can have? Can I work while I'm in school to minimize the amount of student loan debt that I have? So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, and okay, so now it's letting me reset. My PowerPoint came up, but now I'm trying to find the link for the website. Seems like it's toggling back and forth for some reason. Well, let me do one and not the other. So let me see if I can share this link for, let's see, I'm going to stop share. and see if I can get this website link. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is a student loan payment amount estimator. Again, this is just an estimate. So this is not saying that if I were to go to college, this is the dollar amount I'm going to be responsible for. However, this is something that if I can go back in time and before I put one step into a classroom, I wish I could have done, this is it. This is the thing that I wish I could have done when I was in school. So I'm just going to give you an idea, and this is going to vary for everyone. The national average currently for student loan interest rates varies every year. This year, it is actually around 3.73 for undergraduate students. That varies for graduate students, and this is for loans that are through the federal government. Now, there's different types of loans available. There's federal government loans, and then there's private loans. Private loans are typically from outside resources, such as, let's say, a bank. They're very different from student loans. Private loans have different terms. You might have to, with private loans, sometimes pay them while you're in school. Sometimes they're like credit cards, where with student loans through the federal government, you can do what's called deferment, which was mentioned in the video that we watched, where let's say if you have a financial hardship or you have a loss of employment or some reason that you temporarily want to pause payment on your student loans after graduating, you'd be able to use what's called a student loan deferment. That's something that I would strongly advise that you're familiar with as you are taking out student loans, because there's a time frame that you have through the duration of having a student loan that you can have deferments. I don't remember the time frame, but I believe it's calculated in years. So they take off time for all of the time that you're on a deferment. But private loans typically do not have deferment options available. So they're much like credit cards, where you are continuing to make payments until that loan is taken, is paid off. And they also have very different interest rates. For private loans, they can range from 1% up to 13%. And they're often credit based as well. So that interest rate that you might pay for private loans may vary based on interest. Whereas for federal loans, it's different, where it's every year it changes. So when you enroll in school, you're going to have a specific federal interest rate that's going to be based on the year you enroll. So at this time, it's currently 3.73. So let's say for student loans, you're a student that was able to find grants, you're able to find multiple scholarships, and you're attending a school where you think that you're going to need about $10,000 a year in student loans. So let's just look at what that would look like for you if you had $10,000 in student loans at an interest rate of about 3.73. And let's say that you want to take after college, you don't want to spend too much time paying your student loans back. So you really want to buckle down and give yourself a 4-year time frame of paying your loans back. So if you're going to say a $10,000 student loan at the average interest rate of 3.73 with the payment time frame of 4 years, you're going to look at a monthly payment estimate of $225. That's post-graduation. Now, this is just an estimate. So again, this is not a guarantee, but it just gives you a ballpark number. So when you're in school, you're a senior, you're excited, you're looking into jobs, you're looking into the potential income that you might have. That's going to be an amount that every month is going to be taken from your income. So when you're applying for loans, that's why it's important to use estimators like this, so you can feel comfortable with the amount of loans you're taking out. So you can say, you know what, if it means that I have to pay $225 a month after graduation for 4 years, that's fine. I'm very comfortable with that. Now, let's say that's not possible for you. Let's say every year you're instead going to have to take out student loans, and let's say $20,000, but you still want to pay them off in 4 years. Now you can calculate and see that your monthly payment is going to be now $449 a month. Now, let's say, I think that's a little high for me for 4 years. What happens if I change that to, let's say, 8? Now you're down to $241. Now, that's, let's say, by year. Let's say when you graduate from college, your overall amount of loans that you've taken out, let's say for your loans is $50,000. And you want to take, let's say, let's just say 8 years again. You're going to have a monthly payment of $603. And remember, that will be coming from your income that you're making every month post-graduation. So let's say you go, that's a lot of money in 8 years. What happens if I double that to 16 years? Now you're at $346 monthly for 16 years. So that means for 16 years, you're going to have about a monthly payment of $346 that you're going to be making towards your student loans. Now, when you are applying for your financial aid, that website that I took you to that provided you with the link, the FAFSA website, Understanding Aid, that provided you with the option for paying your student loans back. I think that was under How Financial Aid Works. That is why I said that this area is important, that you are not just focusing on how you're going to use financial aid, but you're also looking at repayment options. That way, when you are estimating what your payments may be, you know what options you might have that are available to you when you graduate. There's different type of repayment options. There's income-based repayment options where when you graduate from college, you might be eligible for an income-based repayment options. There's different terms where you might have a 15-year repayment time frame or 30-year repayment time frame. And although you might have it set that way, you might have an amount for yourself that you want to spend paying your student loans. So you might say, although it's a term of 15 years, I'm going to try to do it in 8. But that is, again, why it's important to research the different type of repayment options, not when you graduate, but before. So then that way you have an idea of what is this going to look like when I graduate from college? How much am I going to have to pay back every month? Because it can be a little daunting when you graduate, you're all excited, you're making your first paycheck, and you go, wait a minute, what's the student loan bill that they just gave me? This is my money. Now I have to give you $500 a month. I didn't know that. Looking it into in the front end is a great way to prepare yourself for what it will look like post-graduation. And just so that you know, it is going to be different for every student. If you, let's say, graduate undergraduate and you do not continue on with, let's say, a master's or additional school, but when you are out of college, 6 months post-graduation from college is when you are going to expect that first payment to be due. They don't give you 6 years. They don't give you much time. It's 6 months. You're still fresh and excited about graduating, still feeling like you're a student, and you are already paying these payments back. So not to be a downer, but this is just information that I really want you all to know. So then it's something that you go in knowing, and you can continue as you're a student to adjust what you're eligible for. Again, your freshman year of college, you might not have a lot of scholarships maybe you're eligible for. But as you're a student, you might find that you start to find that you are eligible for things that you weren't previously. So you might find that you're reducing the amount of loans that you're taking out as you're a student. And if you can do that, that is going to be a huge benefit for you. All right. I'm going to see if it lets me share the PowerPoint now where I can move screens. Let's see. Okay, great. Okay, so I am able to now share the PowerPoint. Thank you so much, Risa, for doing that for me. All right, so as I mentioned before, I wanted to cover a little bit on what is covered in the cost of your tuition. Now, as a student, you're going to have different costs that you're going to be responsible for, some of which will appear on your actual bill as a student, and some of them will not. So billable costs will be costs that you will actually receive a bill or statement for that will be covered either by your student loans, scholarships. That will include the actual tuition, the courses that you're enrolled in, any expenses such as any resource fees, and also if you are a student on campus, your tuition for living on campus, any meal plan options you may have, those are things that will show up on your college bill. Now, as you're a student, there are ways to minimize that, where maybe if there's different options of, let's say, housing on campus, you might have one dorm, let's say, that costs a different amount than another. You might find that if you want to minimize your student loan debt, that even the decisions you make as far as where you're living on campus can minimize the amount of student loan debt you have. As you're a student, if you are paying for your courses with student loans, you might utilize, as I mentioned before, work study, where you're using your work study to actually cover some of the costs of your tuition. If you're living in a dorm, that might be a time to take advantage of that, where you might need a little less money than when you're living on your own if you decide to move into an apartment. There's indirect costs that do not come up on your tuition bill, but there are still expenses that you'll have to pay for as a student, including books and supplies. I went to school for education and I did not have a lot of money. I sometimes worked 2 jobs and I was really finding that I needed every dollar I had. And my program asked us to have a lot of out-of-pocket expenses doing projects that we would create lesson plans and boards and things for students. And it can get pretty expensive because I didn't have the resources and I was constantly buying supplies, and it was something that was out of my own pocket. So those are things to keep in mind as a student. If you come into any money while you're a student, if you're working a job, it might be tempting to spend it and do things extracurricular wise or social wise, but you might want to just set aside a little bit here and there, because as you're a student, you might have expenses that come up, and that will make sure that you do have money to cover that. That's not going to come from, let's say, financial aid, but it might come out of pocket. Personal expenses, travel costs. If you're going to a school that's a few hours away or even out of state, you would have to be paying the cost of traveling back and forth. Any of those expenses are expenses that you're going to want to consider as a student. So there's another site that I want to show, and this is where you can actually find an estimate for the tuition and fees of schools. Now, of course, any school that you're interested in will have their tuition and fees listed. Every school is different. Some schools, it can be a little complicated how they calculate the rates for their tuition. Some of them are very outright, and they'll show you by major, by the time that you're in school, if you're a freshman or sophomore. But as you're comparing, there's this website called collegecost.ed.gov. And this is where you can actually type in the name of the school and just get the clear amount of the cost of tuition. So let's say someone is interested in, I'll just say another state school, let's say Northern Illinois University, and it does come up for you as far as the names. So let's pull up Northern Illinois University. And it's going to bring you directly to their official website, and it'll bring you directly to their cost of tuition. So it saves you time on doing that search, where it'll bring you the cost of tuition for Northern Illinois University. And you would just fill in the information, such as if you're an undergraduate student, if you plan to attend, let's say on campus, you would select no for the online portion. They have where you can select all majors, so then that way you can get a general estimate. And let's say you are looking to start spring of 2022, then you can do an estimate of your room and board. It will continue to ask you how many hours you may have, which you might not know, but a lot of students in their first year of college start off with 15 credit hours. It varies for every student. However, let's say your first 2 semesters, you're going to have 15 credit hours. That's usually pretty standard.
Sorry to interrupt you again, Laurie, but we can't see your screen.
Oh, no. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Let me see. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Can you see it now? Okay, great. Okay, so all you all missed was me plugging in the information. So I apologize about that. I'm going to go back to the site. It's Net Price Calculator is the site, and it's a collegecost.ed.gov. And remember, I said that you want to try to look for sites that end with that .gov, because then you know it's a government site, it's official. And the great thing with this is that it brings you directly to the college's website. So it's accurate information, it's up to date. That's why it's so important to look for sites that end in that .gov, so that you know it's accurate information. You don't want to spend all that time and legwork looking into information that you find is not even accurate. So this site, if you were to type in the name of the school, would bring you directly to Northern Illinois University's website, and specifically to their page that brings you to the estimate for tuition. So what I did was I just put that I'm a undergraduate student. I put all majors. I said that I was going to be starting spring of 2022. And I said that I was going to do 15 hours for the fall and spring semester, just because that's a pretty standard amount for a lot of students when they start college. And that brings me to the estimated cost of tuition. And then you can even estimate the amount of textbooks, which you may not know until you enroll in classes, but you can just do a little bit of an estimate to see what you think that might be. And then this brings you to an estimate of what your tuition may be per semester and also for the full year. Now, the reason that this is important is because it allows you to get creative and think about, how am I going to break this amount down? If I have scholarships, again, maybe there's a $400 scholarship out there. Well, if you're estimating books at $200, you now cover your fall and spring semester tuition for your textbooks. Maybe if you have a scholarship that's $1,000, now you've taken off $1,000 of this full amount or per semester. So that's why it's important to calculate and have an idea of how much your tuition will be, so that as you're accepting resources for financial aid, you know how much is going to be covered. All right, now I'm going to, let's see, get back to the PowerPoint.
We do want everyone to please get your questions ready because we have about 15 more minutes of presentation and then we'll move into our questions.
Yes, so there's one more site that I want to show. This is going to be where, when you're going through your FAFSA application, as I mentioned before, they're going to calculate your student need. So the financial aid application, based on information that you input, such as your taxes, will determine what you need as a student. So a lot of that information you might not know, but that will be determined when you go through your FAFSA application. And as I mentioned before, they will ask for information such as your parents' income, your tax information, the size of your family, the amount of students enrolled in school. Now, I covered as far as the different types of loans that are available, grants, scholarships, and work study. I, again, strongly suggest that you are considering that as you are utilizing financial aid and how you can maximize all of the resources available to get to what I want to go to next, which is, again, what it's going to look like when you graduate. We covered as far as the different type of grants, scholarships, which I'm going to quickly show a website that lets you see scholarships that are out there for you. And now there's a lot of resources out there for scholarships. However, this is one that houses thousands of scholarships. But scholarships is something that you'll do a lot of outside research on in order to find scholarships available. But I particularly like this site because it helps you with just getting keywords, so that when you do a Google search, you will have a amount of keywords that you can type in to help you with minimizing your search. So scholarship.com, if you click on scholarship directory, provides you with a list of categories. I would recommend that you just click on the categories to see which ones you might be eligible for and which ones relate to categories that you might find that you fit. And as you're going through, keep a record of the ones that you find you qualify for. So when you do Google searches, you just simply Google scholarships for in whatever category you were eligible for here. Of course, you can search scholarships here, but there might be scholarships that aren't listed here. You might find that, let's say your local church, they're not listed here. They never uploaded their scholarship opportunity. So you want to use scholarships.com because it's one of the main places to find scholarships. However, it helps you if you just take some of the keywords and do a Google search just to target in on scholarships that you might be able to Google that aren't listed here. So let's say, for instance, you're wanting to search scholarships under your major. If you were to click academic major, then you would be able to click on scholarships under your major. Let's say that you are a biochemistry major. You're going to find that there's a number of not only scholarships, but also deadline dates that they're due. And as you scroll through, you're going to see that there's scholarships that just by the name, it might stand out, but you want to just take time to review. And again, you can just click on the keywords to see the scholarships that are available. And there's an additional site that I also want to show. And that site allows you to search keywords as well. And this one is found on the studentaid.gov site, which is a great place to look for scholarships because they're listed on that student loan site. Then you know that they're reputable. They're scholarships that you can trust because they're listed. And as you see, they do provide you with information on how to avoid those scams. They list the U.S. Department of Labor's free scholarship search tool. And #cap is going to have a scholarship workshop that will go more into scholarships. However, these are two sites that I would strongly recommend looking into. Now, this particular site on the first page will list scholarships based on upcoming deadline dates. However, the search tab allows you to just do a search where you can easily find scholarships. Remember, from that scholarship site, just type in the keywords that you found that you related to. So I just played around with this the other day and I minimized it, let's say race. So if I just type in the word,
Laurie,
oh, sure. I'm sorry. What was that?
we can't see your screen.
Oh, you know what? Let's see. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Can you see it now? Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so if I type in, let's say the word on the keyword Black, then that brings me to scholarships that are related to African American students. And it provides you with the scholarship amounts. It applies to the type of degree. And let's say I want to say Chicago. So I want to find local scholarships. This will bring me to scholarships that are for the city of Chicago. So this is another area that you can type in keywords. And this was found on, I apologize if you couldn't see my screen. It was found on the Federal Student Aid site. And it was located under types of financial aid. Under how do I find scholarships, the US Department of Labor free scholarship search tool. All right, and before we take questions, the last link that I want to share is one that I think is a helpful one, just so in that way, as you are looking into scholarships, looking into resources for schools, you are able to not only calculate your potential amount that you are going to have to pay back, but as you are even determining a major, there is a site on discover.com, and this site actually will allow you to get an estimate of what your potential income may be once you graduate from school. And is this site showing up, the discover.com site? Excellent. Okay, great. So this site not only allows you to compare college costs, but it also allows you to get an estimate based on your projected major of what you may have as far as an average based on the state that you plan to reside in. So then that way you have an idea of, is this major going to be one based on the amount that I'm going to have to be responsible for paying student loans back to be realistic for me? You might find that you have a major that is one that maybe the starting amount is one where you want to just be a little mindful of that, because again, your student loans are going to be paid back 6 months after you graduate. And depending on your major, you might have an internship that you are hired into post-graduation, or you might graduate, let's say at an entry level, and then you move up to a higher income salary amount. But your student loan amount may be one that you're finding starts 6 months after college. So it might get better for you as you go, but in the beginning, you just want to kind of have a mindset of what might my potential income be once I graduate. So this allows you to see based on the career you're interested in. Let's say that you want to go into, let's say, nursing. So you would type in nursing. And I'm just going to, for the sake of time, say, no, I don't have any schools that I have that I'm interested in. But I'm going to say the state of Illinois, because what that will do will allow you to see the state of Illinois' average income for someone going into the field of nursing. So this lets you see on average the expected annual cost of attendance for a student that is enrolled in an Illinois school in the major of nursing. Again, that will vary, but this is an estimate. And it gives you the median salary as well. Now, this is a median salary, so that does not mean that that is how much you would make. It will vary. However, that lets you know when they average that amount out. That will vary based on your education, your skills, the actual area of nursing you go into, but that gives you an idea. Now, this also will let you see what the expected median federal loan debt is. So then you can even do a comparison of, is the amount of debt you're going to have when you graduate pretty similar to the average amount, or is it much higher? And it also lets you see the amount of loan payment on average for a 10-year student loan, so that you can see that estimate that I did on that prior site. It is about average of that $249 a month amount. And then it lets you see if you maybe want to continue on your education, what that might help you in, or different areas of that field as well. So that's something to keep in mind as you are looking into financial aid, to consider when I graduate, what is my income going to potentially look like, and how that affects what I have every single month that I'm paying back in these student loans. And is the career field I'm going into one that it looks like doesn't even match as far as what that loan debt is based on income? That's something that, again, a lot of times you don't necessarily think about, but those are important things to consider as you're deciding a school and even a major. All right. All right, so we have come to the end of our presentation, which will allow us time for questions before we get to the closing remarks. One other site is there's a college scorecard, and that allows you to compare schools to see the actual grade of a school, because it might be a school that you see offers your major and has a tuition that you're interested in that works for your financial aid needs. However, you do want to do research to see, is this a school that has a good reputation? What is the amount of students maybe that are graduating in the field that I am obtaining my degree? So that scorecard is something that's important to consider as well, because school is a huge investment, and you want to make sure you're investing in a school that is going to get you into the career field that you're looking for, so that any resources you're using for school, you're really feeling confident in that decision. All right, so I'm going to go to the chat screen, and I'd like to take questions now.
I have a question.
Yes.
So earlier when you were talking about like financial aid and things, and you were saying like you have to know certain things. You have to know certain things like to apply. Do you have to know the school that you want to go to apply for financial aid, or can you do financial aid without knowing what school you want to go to?
Great question. So if you are, let's say, a senior in high school and it is October 1st, you can apply for financial aid without inputting one school code. That school code is the unique ID that will go to a school of interest. However, what inputting your application will do is it will start the process for financial aid to determine what you're eligible for. However, when you start determining schools you're interested in and you add that school code, then that school will be able to see how they're going to use what you're eligible for to pay for your school. So even if you add a school code to your application, it's not even committing to that school. It's not saying I'm going to attend. It's not saying these are the funds and resources I want to accept from you. It's just getting an idea of, if I attend this school, what is it going to look like in terms of tuition and financial aid? But no, you do not have to add a school code in order to complete the application. You can submit the application without inputting a school code. Or you can have schools that you decide you don't want to attend, and they can still be listed on your application. You would just want to only accept financial aid from the school that you decide you want to attend. Good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let me go to the chat. Let's see. All right, were there any other questions? Oh, that's great, Gabrielle. I love that that's the light at the end of the tunnel. As I mentioned, when I was in school, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. It was a dark tunnel for 4 years, and I am still learning as an educator, working in as an advisor. And I'm really excited for you all to have access to resources, access to organizations, because it was not available for a lot of us. And it is scary, even with all these resources. So what my hope is that pointing out where you'll find information will help with minimize some of the concerns that you have and fears, because the more you know, the more it just gives you confidence in the decisions that you make. And really targeting in on the resources available and knowing what to focus on helps also, because you don't want to spend time researching information that really isn't relevant. So I'm hopeful that the resources that I pointed out are ones that help you with making the best educated decision and make sense of how you're going to utilize student finance in your degree.
Thank you so much, Laurie, for this wonderful, wonderful presentation. So we did have a couple of questions about where you can find this particular presentation. So yes, this recording will be available on our YouTube channel. And here is what we will do. When you submit your #CAP application, and the link to the application is found in the chat. You may have to scroll up a little. I did put it in there a couple of times. I also put in there the email address as to where you would submit the application. It's sent to cap@ipcdf.org. You can also find that in the chat. As I receive your applications, I will send you a link to today's presentation of where you can find it. In addition, on our website at chiomegaomega.org, under the programs tab, you can find a link to our #CAP landing page we will have the slides from today's presentation on our landing page. Okay, so yes, there are a couple different ways that you will be able to view the information that you have received on today. And I do have here, are there any scholarships available to students applying to HBCUs? If you go onto our landing page, you will see scholarship resources, and then join us in December when we will have our scholarship presentation and we will walk through scholarships for you. So I do hope that today's session has been informative. It certainly was informative to me as a parent. I just want to pop back in our overall PowerPoint for today. There's just a couple of items that I do want to go over with you today. So I will share my screen, getting back into our presentation for today. Our upcoming workshops, as I mentioned, on next month, we will do a deep dive into that personal statement. You do not want to miss this. We will be sending out the flyer as well as the link to register later on in the month of September. So please look forward to that and join us on October 9th. November 13th will be our HBCU for Life College Fair that we spoke about. On December 11th, we will have our scholarship workshop. And then starting as we roll into next year, we will be inviting you to our MLK Day of Programming on January 17th. It will be held on MLK Day, so that will replace our second Saturday workshop for the month of January. And I'll get into more information later on in the year as to what that program will entail. All right. So moving on, the little surprise moment for our workshop today. As I mentioned, we were going to revisit our icebreaker from earlier. In our icebreaker, if you recall, we asked our students to give us what item or tell us what item you could not live without if you were packing for college. What I didn't tell you is that there would be a $25 gift certificate sent to the student who is going to take the most unique item with them to school. I'm going to ask our presenter today to announce our award. She was not only our presenter, but she was also the judge for our contest. And so Miss Laurie, can you tell us who that student was and what unique item they are taking with them to college?
Yes, so there were some amazing answers. It was hard to decide. However, there was one that stood out, and that was someone that said they wanted to bring their mom. That would be Jordan Taylor.
All right, Jordan, you're gonna pack up your mom and take her with you. And Jordan, we will send you in your to your email address that you used to register for today's workshop, your $25 gift card. All right. Again, thank you everyone for coming. Remember to over in our chat, you will find the link to our #CAP application. You will find the address the email address to send it to. And also in our chat, I do want to, we're going to drop a link to a survey that we would like for everyone to take just a little bit of time to fill out today regarding today's program. We want to make sure that we are meeting your expectations. So please do take the time to fill out the survey in that link. And at this time, as we close out our program, I do want to bring up our Vice President, Ms. Tasha Smith, for closing remarks.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am Tasha Smith, Vice President of Chi Omega Omega Chapter and the Imani Pearls Community Development Foundation. On behalf of our #CAP Program Chairman and the entire committee, we would like to thank all of the participants for joining this impactful event. We truly hope that you were empowered by attending, and we appreciate your support of Chi Omega Omega Chapter and the Imani Pearls Community Development Foundation programs. Congratulations in advance to our new #CAP students. We look forward to working with you and increasing your knowledge about the college application process. Today, you received a lot of information about the #CAP program and financial aid. These are valuable resources that will successfully shape your college and professional careers. For more information on future programs and events, please visit our website at chiomegaomega.org. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you everyone for attending. We'll see you next month and we'll help you write that bomb personal statement.